Good afternoon, everybody. I welcome you all for today's technical session with Veeam. Once again, I thank you for your taking time out of your busy schedule for attending this session on a Friday afternoon. Hope after this session you can directly get into the weekend mode and have fun with family and friends. Yeah, with this, I, Prasanna, I manage the technical sales team for the SARC South region, the South India, Sri Lanka, and Maldives region here at Veeam. Today, I'll take you through the Veeam capabilities with respect to CDP, continuous data protection, which helps our customers in lightning fast recovery. How we can achieve this, I'll take you through all the nitty-gritties of it in the next hour of time. With this, let's begin. To start with, again, the basic formalities of the webinar. You would have been entered into the webinar in the listen only mode, but that doesn't stop you from asking your questions. Please feel free to post all your questions in the Q&A box. I'll try to take them in the end of this towards the end of this session and try to answer all of them. If at all I do not have an answer for any, I would take them and revert back with the correct answers to each and every question of yours within a very short period of time. With this, yep, talking about something about Veeam as a solution or Veeam platform as such. Veeam, as we say, is not just a data backup solution. We are a data availability or a data management solution, to say so. Veeam is a single solution which helps its customers protect their physical, virtual, endpoint devices, NAS, cloud workload, the Kubernetes of the world, or the container platform of theirs, any applications, Microsoft, non-Microsoft, the Oracles, SAP HANAs, the NoSQL databases, anything that you would want to protect, Veeam is a single point solution for you. It's not a pointed solution, which are there many in the industry for backup, for replication, and things like that. Veeam is a solution which helps you protect your data end to end. As I told, the virtuals, the physicals, the cloud, the SaaS, or any application of yours, we are here to protect it end to end. On premise, or cloud, or BAS, backup as a service, or DR as a service, or even software as a service with Microsoft O365, Teams, and Salesforce coming into the backup ambit of Veeam. Veeam as a single platform helps you protect, as I told, starting from the bottom left, any applications of Microsoft, Exchange, MS SQL, AD, anything that you can think of, or your DNS also gets included in that. The Oracle, SAP HANA, PGSQL, or any Kubernetes workload of your choice from any distributor for that matter, like Veeam has Kasten from Veeam, which helps you protect your um, containerized platform with application consistency built into the solution. Any unstructured data you would want to back up, any NAS or any share, SMB, NFS, anything that you want to back up. Physical, Windows, Linux, even the Mac OS from your endpoint devices. I mean, eh, the laptops, desktops, whatever, or AIX Solaris from the Unix world, I'm totally okay. Moving to the top left uh, on the screen, any cloud workload for that matter on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, or any containerized workload running on this particular cloud platform, totally fine. Any SaaS workload, Microsoft O365 or Salesforce for that matter. On the top right, for which Veeam was initially or originally built when it started its operation way back in 2008, sorry. VMware, Microsoft, Hyper-V, Nutanix, Red Hat virtualization, or any KVM for that matter, taking the agent-based approach, we help you protect your data on the platform of your choice, the workload of your choice. The solution to protect the data remains the only constant in the environment would be the solution that you use to protect. Veeam data protection solution, single platform to protect all your workloads. Now you might ask, okay, we are taking backup is there in place, why CDP? What is this CDP all about? CDP is continuous data protection. There can be many forms of CDP. As we go through each one of them or go through this session, I'll take you through each of those types of CDP that can be put in place. Continuous data protection is a way which helps you maintain a journal of data or stream of data that changes with every transaction, every second, every minute in your environment, can be restored or made available in the DR site in matter of seconds or minutes. It solves the problems of backup window. For example, you might be taking backups every 15 minutes, but there is a lag of 15 minutes or delay of 15 minutes, data loss of 15 minutes. The RPO that you could achieve with backup or the regular replication, I'll try to touch on regular replication in a while. The RPO that you could achieve in that environment would be 10 to 15 minutes. 90% of the customers and 90% of their workloads would be happy with that RPO, but there are 10% of our customers and 10% of many customers workload which will not suit that window of 15 minutes or 10 minutes of RPO. They would want somewhere zero or near zero RPO to be achieved. That is where CDP or continuous data protection kind of a feature or a solution comes very handy, used for compliance with stringent data protection regulations. Where there is a very stringent data protection regulation, CDP comes into picture. Right? They might be banks or any of your financial institutions, including your insurance companies, or it can
Prasanna, we lost you here.
Sorry, was there a question?
No, I was saying that we couldn't hear you. Now you are audible.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, there was a small network glitch from my side. My apologies for that. I am back online. Yeah. Now continuing with our session. Uh, there might be 90% of customers and 90% of many customer workloads which are happy with or content with this 10 to 15 minutes of RPO, whereas 10% of customers and 10% of workload of multiple customers or many customers of ours who would want a zero or a near zero RPO. This is where a CDP or a continuous data protection kind of solution comes very, very handy. This solves the problem of the backup window, which I was talking about, where even when you take a backup every 15 minutes, that lag of 15-minute in RPO will not be acceptable for many customers, like any financial institutions or any telecommunication institutions, or there might be some stringent regulatory bodies which might go through a very stringent data protection regulations, which require such data protection strategies to be put in place. There are two types of CDPs, or continuous data protection to expand it. Real time.
Prasanna, we can't hear you.
Don't tell me it was the fine.
Okay. The next one is near CDP, wherein a very frequent replication data will be flown between or copied between the DC and the DR, or the source and the destination. So it is close to achieving the zero RPO. Whereas in reality, near CDP kind of a solution will provide an RPO in seconds, which will be acceptable by 99% of the scenarios, wherein 1% definitely will ask for real-time CDP, which fits into that particular bill. But overall, CDP is always near CDP in the practical scenario. Okay, now we have seen what is CDP, what are the two different types of CDP, why continuous data protection is actually required. I mean, I have covered it roughly, but this is a business critical requirement. This is required for your to protect your mission critical data, or most critical tier 1 workloads, which forms around 5 to 10% of your workloads in any given environment. Even in a financial institute, or a telecom industry, if they have hundreds of systems, not every system, not every bit of data will require a CDP kind of solution. 10% of their workload, if they have 100 VMs running in the environment, 10 VMs would fall in the bracket where CDP becomes a requirement for them. So 8 to 12% is what they say. So let's boil down to the median, which is 10%, which falls in the ambit of CDP requirement. So for such 10% mission critical workloads, or tier 1 workloads, a near zero recovery point, minimizing the data loss to almost negligible, is required to be implemented with CDP. CDP comes as a built-in feature in Veeam with no additional licensing cost for everyone's knowledge. I'm just trying to share that licensing portion also as part of this technical session, wherein you can continuously replicate the data between the source and the destination, and in the destination you can fall back to the latest available point in time copy, which will be 2 seconds or 5 seconds behind schedule, and come up with that point in time copy at the DR site when a failover actually happens. Fine. Now again, talking about why is this CDP kind of a solution is required when you have backup and the regular replication, where we have been able to achieve 15 or 10 minutes of RPO. The answer would be business requirement, nothing other than that. There are multiple ways of protecting your data. You archive your data using the GFS copies. The daily, weekly, monthly, yearly copies will be maintained, and you just keep it for long-term retention. You want a 6-month-old data to be restored for whatever requirement of legal or any auditory requirements. You just restore the old data. There can be the next level of requirement, where a backup with every 15-minute backup being scheduled in the environment, you will be able to meet a 15-minute RPO with that particular approach. There might be the regular replication, the snapshot based replication, where 5 to 15 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes of RPO might be met. There will be one section of workloads or one vertical of customers who will ask for RPO not in days, not in hours, not in minutes. They will ask for RPO in seconds. This is the bracket where CDP fits in. The continuous data protection based replication, where per second RPO becomes very critical, is when CDP comes very handy. Benefits, when as I have already explained. Business continuity. This is the ask of every feature. When, for that matter, why is backup required? Business continuity. The time taken to come bring the solution back up and running for business to uh, go live might be in minutes or in hours in case of backup. End of the day, that's even business continuity. The SLA might differ. The same thing applies to the CDP approach or continuous data protection approach also, or solution also. But here business continuity is more critical and is dealt in just seconds, nothing more than seconds. That too, these seconds generally will be in single digit. At times it can be 10 seconds, 15 seconds, even 30 seconds, and nothing more than that. I'm sorry. Meeting the internal and external SLAs with the end customers. This becomes a very major requirement for CDP to be in place. I have a 1 minute SLA with the customer. That is what the maximum downtime can be. I have been paid for that. My customer has already paid for that SLA. I'm not supposed to breach that SLA come what may. This is one another scenario where CDP comes very handy. Associated cost and complexity. This is the byproduct of the point which we discussed just above. The SLAs which, when they are not met, they come with a very high cost. So when you have a contractual agreement to meet an SLA, CDP becomes a requirement. The results are very obvious. It eliminates the downtime to near zero and minimizes the data loss again to near zero. This built-in continuous data protection will help you achieve immediate recovery to the latest copy available 2, 3, 5, or 10 seconds behind schedule. And it will instantly fail over to the latest copy, and to the granularity of your choice, what and how you want to restore, you will be able to restore. Fine. And now we have seen what is CDP, why is CDP, where CDP becomes handy. Now all this is fine. How do we achieve this? Yes, we understand that the SLA is met in seconds, the RPO will be near zero, data loss, replication happens in real time, all that is understood. But how are we able to achieve this magical number of 2 seconds RPO, 5 seconds RPO? Answer is here. Veeam's CDP is very flexible and very scalable. This scalability or flexibility is based on the sizing of the workload and not bound to number of hosts you have. Is it a 3-node cluster or a 10-node cluster? Doesn't matter. What workload is more critical? Which is the most critical tier 1 workload that I have, which requires this CDP approach to be taken? Based on that, we scale the solution. We are that flexible. The proxies used for CDP. CDP uses its own proxies. It will not share proxies with any other type of workload. These proxies can be either virtual or physical. To get the taste of CDP or to get to understand how CDP works, we at Veeam always tell our customers, start small, take 10% of your workload, put that into the CDP ambit. As I already have told, let me reconfirm, this comes with no additional licensing cost. The only reason for us to say, or for us to advise, start small before you take the entire environment under CDP, the only reason is what amount of configurations in your environment or changes in your environment you would want to make to bring every single workload in the environment under CDP. You will understand it better when you start small. So start small and scale to meet the desired RPOs for every single workload in your environment as and how you would want to. Failover and failback capabilities can be tested anytime. Yep. What do I use to replicate the data like a stream, not using snapshots? It's VAIO, vSphere API for IO filtering, or VMware API for IO filtering, as it is very famously known as. VIO is a framework that enables any third party, any partners, any developers who would want to develop filters that run on the ESXi and can intercept any input-output request from the guest operating system to the virtual disk. When to put it in the layman language, from C drive to any of the D drive, E drive, F drive of that particular VM, from the underlying operating system to any other VMDK disk in that environment. Any IO that has been issued will not be committed to the disk without being processed by the IO filters created by the third party tools, which means security is in place and you just cannot write anything or pass any comment or command onto the environment and try to corrupt the underlying disk. No, that is not possible. Everything is processed by the ESXi host before it gets actually written onto the virtual disk in the environment. These filters are executed inside the ESXi host, that is the physical server or the platform as we call it, and not in each and every VM. So a single filter is used to be executed across 5, 10, or as many VMs running on that particular physical hardware. There is no per VM driver or agent that is running in the environment. And the VIO also provides the framework to centrally install and upgrade all these filters that are required in the environment. You just don't need to log into each and every server for any installation or upgrade as per required. Here, one point to uh, keep in mind is caching will increase. This will increase the IOPS available, reduce the latency considerably, and increase the utilization rates of the underlying hardware. Replication will allow user to create very granular, at a very granular level at every VM in the environment. So every write that happens to the source VM will be replicated onto the destination. Like you have a 10-second RPO set. So that 10-second RPO is split into two. The first 5 seconds, the VAIO reads the input what it gets. In the next 5 seconds, it will copy those writes which have come to the journal on the source to the destination. So every RPO what you set will be split into two, for the first half for reading, the second half for writing onto the driver on the destination. Yep, this is the architectural overview of that. On the top, you can see the coordinator. Uh, being the VBR server. This is the daemon that runs, or the filter, or the agent, whatever you would want to call it, that runs on the ESXi host, which filters each and every write from each and every VM required or part of this CDP and takes it through the proxy host. The replication is done onto the proxy on the destination side, and through the daemon it gets written onto the target vSphere cluster. And the same thing applies from the DR to DC. If we are doing CDP, the same flow is taken into account. Yeah, I mean, Veeam CDP is very simple. There is no complexity that gets involved when you are doing, or you are configuring continuous data protection in your environment. When a small snippet, a short snippet of how it is done and what all can be configured over here. The recovery point objective, it is in seconds. It can be between 2 to 30 seconds. It can be more than 30 seconds, but generally when you are configuring CDP, anything more than 30 seconds will generally not be configured. So it can be 2 to 30 seconds. A good RPO for you to achieve would be between 10 and 15 seconds over here. 15 seconds is a very good RPO for you to achieve, which will be split into two, for 7.5 seconds to read the changes that come into the journal, and then write the changes that has come into the source journal onto the destination journal for making that mm, replication complete, for you to have one recovery point every 15 seconds. There are two retention points here. One, the short-term retention. The second one, the long-term retention. The short-term retention, I mean, here in the snippet, it has been set to 4 hours. Generally, the longer you set the short-term retention, the explanation is very clear below that itself in the snippet. As and when you keep the interval longer, the disk space required for the journal will be higher. So generally it will be 1 to 2 hours somewhere there. If you want to keep it at 4 hours, please feel free to do that. All that writes which happen for, or changes that happen for those 4 hours, will be written into the journal itself before it finally gets um, written onto the virtual disk. And whatever changes or failovers that happen in the short term retention period are always crash consistent and not application aware or application consistent. Whereas the long term retention, which can be 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, whatever you would want to have, make that as, will be application aware or application consistent, and you can retain those restore points for 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, whatever time period you would want to. But as the period of retention increases, the disk space required to maintain that will definitely increase as such. Yep. This is how the UI would look. The short-term retention and long-term retention I was talking about. Short-term retention is the latest state. When always that will be crash consistent. You can do a point in time failover with short-term retention to the count of 2 seconds, 5 seconds, or 10 seconds or so. Whereas long-term retention is for the application aware or application consistent failovers or planned failovers to happen, which are snapshot based. And both permanent failover failback is possible with CDP. Once a permanent failover is done, all the changes that have been made through the journal will be flushed onto the underlying virtual disk for you. Here you can see the failover can be planned, or immediate failover can be achieved by selecting the failover now option on the setup. Yep. The configuration of CDP is very simple with Veeam, as I had already told. It's a three-step process. Install the filter driver on the vSphere cluster on the ESXi host. Configure CDP proxies. I had mentioned when I explained the components of CDP. Proxy is independently used for CDP. Generally, as per the best practice, the Veeam proxy, which is used for CDP, is not shared with any other replication or backup types inside the same environment. A Veeam proxy is configured specifically for CDP. You can say they are CDP proxies, and then configure a CDP job. Add the VM that, or the set of VMs that you would want to replicate with CDP in place. Select the source host, select the destination host, the proxies which will be used at both source and destination, and the time interval in which you would want to achieve CDP, like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever you would want to set. Please feel free to set that when you configure a backup job. Now, all this while we have seen what is CDP, where is CDP put to use, when it has to be put to use, how it has to be configured, how a backup job is run. Yes, all that is part of the process. Perfect. Now, after the job has been set or created and it is running for the scheduled cycle in your environment, there is something called monitoring also. With Veeam 1 in place, you can even monitor what and how CDP is performing in your environment and what advantages it is bringing in your DR cycle. Yep. Monitoring is a very important aspect when it comes to data protection. It helps you mitigate the issues at the start of it to stay. So you monitor the environment, any alarm that has come into the environment, you try to resolve it, and in the bud itself, you run the reports for any virtual and every virtual and data protection uh, requirements of yours in your virtual environment. Veeam 1 is a primary tool for managing your Veeam backup and also the entire data protection environment in the virtual platform, not just for backup, for the entire infrastructure. At the entire infrastructure level, you can run Veeam 1 to collect reports that you would want to run to make sure how best your environment is put to use and how best you can utilize the available resources in the environment before you get into the mode of new purchases and other things. Yep, this is the report that comes very handy for you. It will tell you what is the success rate that I am getting if at all there is an issue, which is the VM that is getting into the issue, what is that which is causing this particular issue, how should I go about this, what needs to be done to get this corrected and come to almost near zero issues or 100% success rate in the environment. The average SLA is the number of VMs that is meeting the SLA, the number of VMs which is breaching the SLA. Everything will be part of your report with respect to CDP with Veeam 1. It is not just the DC side of resources that you will be monitoring and taking care of. you will have access to each and every resource in the DR site also. When you run CDP in your environment, you will be monitoring both production and the DR site. You analyze the health status and performance of the resources in both DC and DR. You will be able to quickly detect and resolve the issues, and the dashboards available make you analyze the environment and come to an understanding of how and what is happening at the blink of an eye. And also Veeam 1 as a solution in place in your environment helps you detect any anomalies that can occur or that has occurred in your environment, like any anomaly or malicious activity that has to happen in your environment will have to use additional IO resources um, for additional writes that has to happen in the environment, and that additional IO resources has to come from the compute resources available in your production environment. That additional resources that is being used to with malicious intent in your environment can be detected and stopped at in the bud using Veeam 1. Like the CPU generic utilization of CPU during production and non-production hours can be known by running Veeam 1 in your environment for a week or two. So a slab can be set as the higher watermark bench, like um, 40 to 55% of CPU utilization will be there or is seen during the production hours, and 20 to 35% of CPU utilization is seen during the non-production hours. With this benchmark, I can say more than 75% or 80% of CPU utilization during production hours should initiate an alarm, and we should take actions like take that VM out of the network, shut down that VM kind of operations. Similar thing can be done for non-production hours at 45 or 50% of CPU utilization. So any ransomware or malware attack that is intended into your environment can be detected in the bud, and we just can nip the issue in the bud. So Veeam not just helps you in your data protection cycle, but Veeam 1 in place, it can help you monitor your production environment also to a great extent and help you detect and overcome any such issues that can happen in your environment. Yep. Taking one step forward with CDP using Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator, you can automate your entire CDP cycle. It is very simple, lightning fast. DR migrations can be achieved. It's with DR plans, it can be done. It's a fully validated DR plans that can be executed. Compliance is rest assured with VDRO or Veeam with Disaster Recovery Orchestrator in place. It is very simple. It helps you create the required DR plans. It is an orchestrated storage and VM failover that it helps you achieve. Actionable and documentation is very precise with VDRO, which helps you get along with any issues that you face during the failover, gets documented, and for you to do some analysis of what actually failed, what was the reason for that failure, what corrective action has to be taken, and at what step that has to be done. Everything will be in front of you for you to take necessary action. One point that I would want to bring to a notice of every customer of mine: when replication is in place, it doesn't mean it's an alternate for backup, or when backup is in place, it never means it's an alternate to replication. Both backup and replication are two, what to say, two very independent entities of the data protection cycle. They are required for their own needs and requirements, and they are not exchangeable. If backup is there, we should never feel there is no need for replication. When replication is there, or even when CDP is there, it never means, or it should never mean, that there is no need for backup in our environment. No, that doesn't go like that. Backup has its own need and requirement, which will be met only through backup, and there will be some means and ways that can be met only with replication or continuous data protection for that matter, which can be put to use with its own capabilities. I mean, just to say, or coming back on CDP, Veeam CDP is integrated across all the platforms or solutions available with Veeam, Veeam Backup and Replication, Veeam One, and Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator. VBR, Veeam One, and VDRO all are integrated with the CDP solution, and CDP can run on all these three solutions or platforms. With this, I just would want to pause and ask for any questions that are there from my audience.
Yes, Prasanna, we do have questions here.
Yeah, please.
It's from Mr. Mohammed Amin Anwar. His question is it providing layered security against ransomware? And is it providing protection with snapshot for ASM-based database?
I mean, can I ask for repeat the question? And there was
Yeah,
some
is
glitch
it
in the.
providing layered security against ransomware? And the same person's next question is it providing protection with snapshot for ASM-based database?
Okay. Answer is yes for both of them. I'm sorry, I just couldn't get the name of the person.
Mr. Mohammed Amin.
Amin, thanks for the question. A very nice question to start with. Yes, answer is yes for both of your questions. Veeam provides data protection for even ASM based I believe you are talking about Oracle over there. Yes, we provide data protection for that particular kind of databases, and we provide ransomware protection or immutability or air gapped solution for the workload which we try to back up or even protect.
Right. So next question is from Mr. Vittal Mutati. His question is, if CDP can offer zero RPO, what are the downsides of extending this to entire workload?
Yeah. The resource, can I know who asked that question?
Mr. Vittal.
Vittal, thanks for this question. Very interesting question is this. There is no harm in extending a CDP to the entire workflow of yours, but is this a requirement? When me spending additional hours in setting up such environment, and um, each and every VM or which I use for CDP in form of proxy, that comes with a cost. We might not have additional licensing cost, but the compute cost which you will have to bear, is that worth for me to invest on that particular workload of yours which is not mission critical? If this question is answered, there is no reason for you, or nothing stops you from having adopting CDP for each and every workload in your environment. Hope I have answered your question to your clarity.
Yeah. So next question is again from Mr. Amin, Mr. Mohammed Amin. What is the method or process to check the anomalies?
Okay. This is a far-fetched question. I mean, there is no single silver bullet for you to check for anomalies. as I told, with Veeam 1 we can achieve this. This is the reason I touched on that particular point. Even though it was not part of CDP, I just wanted to cover that. uh, Setting a benchmark of CPU utilization during production and non-production hours using Veeam 1, we can set a benchmark telling that any VM which breaches this compute utilization can be taken out of the network or shut down, so that if at all there is some malicious activity intended or happening on that VM, is not spread outside that VM. For example, you have 100 VMs, one VM or VM1 has been compromised. So I nip the issue in the bud. I have made sure only VM1 is compromised and nothing else gets compromised. So there is no spread of that anomaly outside that particular VM. So Veeam or Veeam1 helps you achieve this and keep things clean and tidy as much as possible. Hope I have answered your question to your clarity.
Next question is again from Mr. Vittal. Can
Hmm.
CDP be used to protect non-VMware workloads? What are the limitations, if any?
Yeah, thanks, Vittal. Again, as we speak, it is only for VMware. Please wait and watch. We are planning to extend it for other workloads also, but it is in the due course of time, not immediately. Maybe 6 months or little more than that down the line, you will have that.
Right. Prasanna, that's all. These are the questions which we have received today.
Okay, it was
Yeah.
nice.
Thank you for such an enlightening session. I hope the audience must have enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for your time for today's session. It was very nice interacting with you. Thanks for your questions. Um, have a great weekend and stay safe. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, Prasanna. Thank you, the audience.